Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan canary, answer fans questions. This first news story, super unfortunate. Dolphins lose an offensive lineman. Obviously in the game against the Falcons, Keon Smith tore his ACL. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. It's a big hit. We're going to talk about more about that preseason game because so much happened to it. It's not a huge hit, I would say. Obviously, depth, not great for depth reasons. But he's not one of the more important linemen. Even from a depth perspective, he's not one of the more important ones. But the Dolphins still have Kendall Lamb. They still have Patrick Paul, who played very well in that game. So the Dolphins still have really good depth there. But it is unfortunate that Keon went down. Young player, too. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors, or second news story. Although the Miami Dolphins used a second-round pick on Patrick Paul, the former Houston tackle may be more of a project than a player the team would count on to fill for Teron Armstead. Per Miami Herald's Barry Jackson, Armstead has missed 11 games since joining the Dolphins in 2022. It has missed more than 2 games in 7 of the past 9 seasons. Miami having chosen Paul 55th overall points to the prospect being given a chance early in the season. June report suggests the rookie had a good chance to unseat Lamb, though Lamb re-signed before the draft at 1 year, $2.5 million in guarantees. Represents quality insurance that would have the Dolphins carry 4 tackles. So interesting, insight there. Kind of bad insight. I kind of disagree. He wasn't citing anything, which we'll talk about. I guess we'll talk about it now. But I honestly don't know what the 5 linemen are going to be for the Dolphins. It's one of the more important decisions that they're going to have to make. And Patrick Paul played so well against the Falcons in the preseason game. I mean, he dominated his assignment from the start of the game until he played. I think he left late in the third quarter, so he played a lot. He not only did he look great in the run game, but he was really good in pass protection. Omar Kelly pointed this out. Really looked athletic for such a big person. He moves really well, which is what you have to be able to do in this offense. If you're a tackle or a guard or center, you have to be able to move in open space in this offense. And he can do that, which he can do that at a pretty high level, which we saw in the preseason game. So if he can continue to play that well, even in practices, then that was a blessing for the Miami Dolphins, because they never can get enough good linemen. And like the report points out, the Dolphins still have Kendall Lamb, so they have a really good tackle depth this year, which is great. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors, latest on Miami Dolphins position battles. According to Mike Florio of NBC Sports, one such battle focuses on who comes off the bench for Tua. Head coach Mike McDaniel claims that backup quarterbacks Mike White and Skylar Thompson are neck and neck, and their battle to be the primary relief behind Tua. So this is an interesting thing that we saw in the preseason game that I wanted to bring up. I mean, it was one of the first things I was like, okay, I can't wait to talk about this on the podcast. I think the worst thing we saw in that game that was alarming was the backup quarterback position. And I know that Mike said after the game, if you guys watched the press conference, the reason the quarterbacks played so bad, and we got the stats right here. Skylar Thompson finished 9 of 16, excuse me. Skylar Thompson finished 8 of 19 for 95 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Mike White finished 4 for 14 for 26 yards. Okay, and they each got a half to play. That is as bad, and it's even worse if you watch the game. It was really bad. Even before the game ended, I was like, Tua better not get hurt, because these two played as. And back to my original point, I got sidetracked. Mike McDaniel said after the game that they were dealing with a lot of new guys. Willie Snead, who just got on the team 2 days ago, are the reasons why the offensive passing game struggled. Now, there were moments where the receivers struggled, especially when Mike White was in, to get open. That is true. But there are some times that happened. There were many plays, not only were reads missed, where people were wide open, but they really struggled. And this is something that a lot of beat writers have brought up, that they both struggled to control the ball when throwing it. They did not, first of all, they look rattled. They did not look, this is a preseason game, for God's sakes. These two have been in the NFL long enough to not play like that. They played nervous. They didn't control the football well. Every ball they threw was the ugliest looking thing of all time. The accuracy was all over the place. All over the place. And they couldn't make reads because they were so rattled. So, and I thought Skyler is a better backup because of he has better pocket presence than Mike White, and he's a better athlete. He's a way better athlete. I think his arm's better. They both struggle with accuracy though, and at least Skyler can move in the pocket. They're both not great decision makers. They're almost the same player in some ways, what they struggle with. So I think it should, so far, in my opinion, I think it should be Skyler. But to me, the worst thing that we saw in the preseason game against the Falcons was the backup quarterback position. Now, Tannehill is still out there. I think that, to me, if I'm the Dolphins, and I really don't care how much guaranteed money Mike White has, you don't want the season to fall apart. And Tannehill is more than capable of taking over a team and keeping them competitive. If Mike White, if they play like that in a regular season game, we're not going to do anything. They're not going to save anything. We're going to actually be way worse off. They're going to make the team worse. That's how bad they looked. And from the beat writers reporting, they haven't looked good in training camp either. So it's almost like they've regressed, especially Skylar Thompson, which is very strange. But I still think Skylar's better just watching them play. Okay, so moving on from that catastrophe. I mean, Michael Penix, who was throwing in the same conditions that they were, looked like he was in a different realm than two people that have played in the NFL for years. And he didn't even look that great. I mean, even Penix missed some throws, and at least he can control the ball and make reads, and didn't look like he was a deer in headlights. It's crazy, dude. All right, so let's move on to the game. That's really it for the news. There's really no. Let me make sure that I don't have anything else on here that is important. But I am really excited to talk about the game. Obviously, Aaron Brewer. I'm sure you guys know that he's week to week. Just a quick thing to bring up. Keon Smith, we already talked about. He's out for the year with an ACL. Is there anybody else that's injured? Tanner Connor, who played pretty well. He has a lower body injury. His return has not yet been determined. He looked good. And then Isaiah Wynn is still on physically unable to perform list, which is really frustrating. I don't know what is going on with that. It's kind of strange. So let's move on to the game. The Miami Dolphins win 20-13. They honestly should have blown them out. But the offense was just so terrible. And they barely played any of their starters in this game. Let's start with just the number one thing that I took away from this game that I thought was super impressive was the defense. I think the defensive culture has completely changed. You can tell Anthony Weaver is already having a huge impact on that side of the football. Physical. The run defense looked phenomenal in this game against a pretty solid group for the Atlanta Falcons, even though not all of their stars were playing. They have good depth there. And they've been building around the run game for years, and with Arthur Smith before he left. So it was I thought a noticeable difference in attitude and the way that the defense was ran and the feel of the team on defense. Completely different. And it just really was awesome how seamless of a transition bringing that Ravens culture and scheme to Miami was. And you could just kind of you could tell the difference between this defense, even though it's preseason, and last year's defense, and just the way that everybody plays is a completely different feel. And that was the most impressive thing I took away from the game, was that. So Anthony Weaver so far has been a home run, and I think he's going to make a massive impact on this team. And I was thinking to myself the entire time, if this is what we're going to play like, and this is the physicality, and this is how much change he's already had on the team, I can't wait to see the starters in that environment. So that's going to be really fun. And I think the defense is going to be better than people think, which is good. So that was the most impressive thing that I took away from the game. They dominated in the run. On run defense, their leading rusher only averaged 3 yards a carry, and we dominated up front pretty much the entire game when it came to the run game. Very impressive. Other things to notice that stood out. I'll start here. Malik Washington. I think that I'll start with the negative, unfortunately. He's a little slower than I thought. I think that was kind of noticeable in the game, which is kind of unfortunate. He didn't look overly great, which was disappointing. Even on that big, even on the big run that he had, I thought, well, if that was someone a little bit more athletically gifted, that would have been a way bigger gain, and he only got 20 yards out of it. And then receiving wise, which in preseason you get mostly man coverage, there's not a whole lot of exotic stuff, or even maybe you get some basic zone depending on the team you play. But there was a lot of man press out there, and he kind of struggled with that the entire game. So I am a huge fan of him. I was a huge fan of the pick, him coming out of Virginia, and it was kind of disappointing. I'm not going to lie. Jalen Wright, though, I lived up to all the expectations. That was a huge positive in this game. He looked phenomenal, super fast. I thought he read the holes really well. The Dolphins kind of struggled to run the ball in the middle of the field, but when they started running on the edges, he really shined. And that wasn't his fault. It was just they literally weren't very poor execution on some of those plays. So I thought he looked phenomenal. He looks like he's going to be a really, really good player. Patrick Paul, I thought, was a standout in this game. Probably the best out of all the rookies other than Jalen Wright. Other players that I thought played really well, Ethan Bonner, who's been the talk of the town in Miami, I thought looked great. He looked really good. He was impressed man, single high safety the entire time he was out there. He made a really nice play on a screen and a really nice physical open field tackle. So he looked great. He looked like he has a very strong future, which is great. Other notable players, Jeff Wilson still looks like Jeff Wilson. There's really nothing I have to say there. Channing Tindall, who I was watching a lot in this game, who had a huge sack. The problem with Channing Tindall, he's too stiff. He does not move very fluidly. He's a great athlete, but his side to side, which is the most important thing as a middle linebacker, is very poor. He does not move side to side very well. It's always a very stiff, robotic type of movement, and in coverage, that's a bad thing. He just doesn't move really well in the field. And I know he's a fast guy, but that's pretty much it. I think he looks a lot better than he has in years past. And you could tell the Dolphins were trying to use him in different positions in the game. He played some edge rusher, which I thought was interesting. He didn't really do much when it came to that, but he did make a few more plays. He's a better player, but I don't know if he'll ever be much of anything too crazy. He really struggles with that. Other players, Nick Needham looked really good. I thought the corner, Storm Duck, looked really good. Jason Sanders looked really good. hitting that huge field goal. He did miss one, but hitting pretty much a 60-yard field goal, I thought was very impressive. Deshaun Hand looked really good. Pill, I can remember his name. Phil, I can't remember his name. The defensive tackle looked really good. Every interior lineman I thought looked a lot better than I thought they would. Some of the edge players looked really good as well. The entire defense, Sierra Neal, stand out on special teams. He looked phenomenal. I thought that was Brandon Pilley. I can't remember his name, but he looked good. Quentin Bell had a couple nice plays. I know he's been playing really good in training camp. The defense overall, I think, really surprised me, especially like the physicality that they brought to this game was very impressive. So I thought the rookie class, for the most part, everybody looked really good. Really impressed with them. Obviously, we talked about the negatives that I didn't like, but it was nice to see Bonner, who lived up to the hype. I thought he looked really good, and I'm excited to continue to watch him. And I think another, we already brought him up, but I think Sierra Neal, sneaky impact player. I think he's going to be really good on special teams for us this year as a gunner. And I love the energy he brings, and he's a great open field tackler. What else? Who else? Driscoll, the guard that we got from Philadelphia in free agency. I thought he actually looked pretty good. Doesn't really move that well in open space. That was noticeable. But I thought for the most part, I thought he played pretty good. And he could compete for that starting spot, which is good. But I like the way he looked in pass protection, and not necessarily when he was open space having to block on a pull or something like that. But just normal run blocking, I thought he looked pretty good. And Patrick Paul, I think was, I would say Patrick Paul, Ethan Bonner, Jalen Wright were some of the more impressive players of the preseason game. Even Storm Duck was pretty good too. Sorry, that was a pug. Everybody, that was a pug. Snoring away. But that's it. I think we pretty much covered everything. The whole quarterback situation was abysmal, though. And I do want to see more from Malik Washington. Didn't see any Eric Azukama. That was kind of interesting. River Craycraft, I thought looked like River Craycraft. He looked better than the last time we saw him, when he was really, really hurt with injuries. But yeah, I think overall a really good night for the Dolphins, especially on defense, and I think that bodes well for them in the future. I think that unit's going to be a lot better than people think, which is good. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I wanted to look up. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but definitely keep your eye on Azukama for sure. Because he could, he's still a really good prospect. So that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I hope Malik Washington, I really want to see him play inside more. He played a lot of outside in this preseason game. He did play against some veteran players, some players that have played a lot in the NFL. He just struggled against man coverage, and again, he just didn't look as fast and fluid as I thought he would. So I'm excited to see, because I think he looked good. He didn't look bad. But I still think he can be a really good player. I just want to see him play more inside. He did get open on a deep shot. Mike White just missed him. So I think I'm excited to see if he can kind of elevate this before the regular season starts, for sure. Because there's definitely something there. And he did rack up some yards in the kicking game, rushing and receiving. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully Tannehill. It'd be nice to watch Tannehill play in the preseason. Because if this continues, the Dolphins have to do something about the backup quarterback position. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in the next one.